Hello guys, welcome to my Master Duel Sky Striker guide. I am making this video because I have watched gold players play, and I have literally never seen people worse at this game. Like, it's actually surprising. Like, Sky Striker players, they literally don't know how to play the game. Or how to build their deck, and we can fix that here. So are you a hard-stuck gold player? Don't worry, I'm Plat 1, I'm here to teach you. First of all, we're going to go on to what I would consider one of the most optimized lists that you could play. As you can see here, that's a lot of ultra rares. We'll go through the list just so you can I can explain the function of each individual card. Effect Veiler. I'm playing 3. I've seen lists with 2 Veiler, 1 Terraforming. I don't think Area 0 is worth terraforming for, and Chicken Game is literally just Upstart Goblin. You don't need to search it. The main problem with this list and why you wouldn't go on it is Droll and Lockbird, but Droll and Lockbird doesn't see play because everybody's about Max C right now. We're on 3 Max C. The card is crazy. I haven't crafted it yet because I'm broke. Ash Blossom, card crazy. Play 3 of it. 3 Ray. If you're not on 3 Ray, I don't know what you're doing. We're on 1 rose. This is the first ratio that people would question. We're on 1 rose because it's mathematically correct. So 2 rose is the other, reasonable argument, and the thing is rose bricks your hand. And DPE, or what is his actual name? Dragon Phoenix Enforcer or something? Oh well. DPE. I don't actually know the card. I don't have it. In that build, you actually want to link off into Verte, so you would Rose. You play 2 Rose, because, it's an actual extender. In this deck, it's just kind of there if you don't draw Ray. You have a Hope. You can Hopium your way out. And it's also really cracked in the Mirror match. We're on 3 Upstart, 3 Chicken Game. This is more consistent than... Oh, crap. What is it? Then 3 Prosperity and 3 Tech card. Though that is or 3 Desires, 3 Tech card. Those are the other 2 options. I would say that this is more optimal because you get more draw. But there is an argument to play Spell Trap removal, which is what this deck lacks. Rhoda, you get it for free. You play it. It's a consistency boost. Double Engage. If you're not on Double Engage, you're not playing Sky Striker. 1 Afterburners, not 2. We are a blind going first list. I'll get into that, why we go first and not go second later. Hercules Base. This is the most mandatory of the not mandatory cards we're playing. It's just really nice with 1 Kagari right now. I would say it's correct to play. 1 Area 0, this is another thing. It's what the TCG is doing right now to optimize their deck list even further. We do not need the second copy of Area 0. It's kind of bricky in multiples. It's just a weird card to have. Triple Kaiser Coliseum. So this is what I would say is going to give you the most bang for your buck. TC Boo is the only other card that I would really consider in this slot. It's the reason why we can go first. And this wins games just pretty much just as hard as TC Boo can. Though there is an argument for TC Boo making boards, it's also an ultra rare, and the marginal increases that TC Boo will give you is just not worth your ultra rare coins at this given moment. Though if you were playing in a tournament specifically, you might want to cut the Kaiser. Though best of 1 format do hit different. Double multi-roll. Not 3. 3 multi-roll is overkill. You only need the 2. I have never needed more than 2. Never wanted more than 2. It can be a brick in multiple copies. This is just it's the nice feel-good ratio. You're searching it out most of the time anyway, so you only need the 1. The hit to 1 in the TCG only matters if they actually remove the multi-roll. And that's where the second one comes up. You never need the 3rd. Called by the Grave. So, if Called by the Grave just suddenly becomes shit, this is your Spell Trap lineup. Double Cosmic, double Twin Twisters, whatever you're really feeling there. They're both, I would argue, around the same, though Cosmic Cyclone isn't a discard. So that's why most people you'll see not liking Twin Twisters and play Cosmic Silver. Yeah, we're on engine pieces, 2 Shark Cannon, not 1. I've seen people on 1 Shark Cannon. Drytron is in the format. Shark Cannon literally auto wins that matchup. And then we're on Impermanence as our trap card. Impermanence is crazy. Play it. The extra deck is pretty much the exact optimal list. There's a big debate on what Charmer you're playing, but it's pretty much a dead slot. So, yeah. Just Halka-Fibrax Selene access code comes up a lot, and Phoenix, I guess, is the other one that it's like, you could probably get away with not playing it, but, you know, Imperial Order is still in the format, and, you know, having an out is nice, to say the least. Though, like, cards like Skill Drain are still gonna be pee-pee-poo-poo for this deck specifically to out. So why do I think it's the best? This is one of the better, like, decks, is the optimizations people are coming up with. They aren't, like, fully, like, there's arguments to play this list over it. So it's going to, I think this deck is something to build towards. So now we're going to go on to what I actually played to get Plat 1 and like an 11-game win streak. Let's go on to what I'm playing. We'll just go through the deck list real fast as well over here. So we're playing Triple Valor. Valor is cracked. We're playing Ash Blossom. We're playing Ray. You know, we're playing the 1 Rose. We are on Terraforming in this list because we're on the 2 Area 0 because we just needed cards to fill slots at this point. We're on Triple Desires. Desires over Prosperity. It has been a massive debate over. I have really liked Desires in a top decking situation a lot more than Prosperity. Prosperity also will, like, if you Prosperity, you just can't find lethal that turn. So there's a few arguments against Prosperity, though Prosperity is the better turn 1 card. It also turns off Engage Draws, and Engage Draws is how I win 90% of my games anyways. So Twin Twisters, I'm main decking Twin Twisters. The card is really crazy. And I don't have Max C yet. I haven't crafted the card. Still got Plat 1, 11-game win streak. You don't need that shit. Different Dimension Ground. Why are we on this card? It dodges Storm, and it auto-wins versus Drytron anyways. So you beat like 99.9% of the meta with just flipping a different Dimension Ground, and it can dodge Lightning Storm. I don't really know when to tell you. The card is cracked if I'm not on, like, it's like what I'm playing over Max C, and like I'd cut like another card, and I'd cut like an Area 0 for the 3rd Max C, is what I would do if you have Max Cs, and everything else is I would cut the DDG and 1 Area 0. And I believe the extra deck is literally the exact same. So yeah, I really do think that this is the optimal extra deck. Ningirsu is just a really crazy card. It comes up a lot. It's come up in times I've still won the game, but like it's come up where it's like, no, Ningirsu over Unicorn is actually relevant. Non-targeting removal is very important to have. And Access Code Talker can beat over it, yes, but it's... You definitely like the Ningirsu in here to just deal with more problems. It's also like an Earth, so if you do... And like, Access Code follow-up is the... That's why you play it, is that you Ningirsu into Access Code to find lethals, so you don't have to go... So you wouldn't have to, like, actually link into Arcana to get an Earth in the grave. Now it's time to talk about, like, optimizing your gameplay. Because that's the main concern that I've had. Like, I don't expect the most optimal deck list from gold players anyways. But, like, their gameplay, it was just surprisingly bad. First of all, this deck, I would say, is actually pretty easy to play. It's a lot of game fundamentals. You're not going to get any mileage out of this deck if you do not know what to Valor, if you do not know what to Ash, if you do not know what to Imperm, if you do not know when to actually drop your Maxis. Yes, there's an optimal time to do a Maxi. I have seen a lot of people Maxi on normal summon Ray per se, and you can just chain Ray, special summon Shizuku, they get no draw, and you get engage. It's just a really crazy time to essentially get free wins because your deck is better than the opponent's. I do think like Striker outgrinds everything relevant in this format. You just have to play it right. So Sky Striker is considered hard mainly because you have to know when to interrupt your opponent. You have to know that ashing Lulu is the best ash in Virtual World. You have to know like Imperm Doodle Dough in the Prank Kids matchup. Like that's their one and only time to imperm them unless you're waiting for access code, but like that doesn't actually work in this like crappy because access like it's really weird. I think you have to turn it on. You have to turn like chain to specifically on and not auto, and you know that's hard work. So there's just not a lot of points. You have to know exactly when to hand trap them because this deck is better than like 99.9% of what you're going to face on ladder, but you're not going to notice it unless you know exactly how to decision make. It's making those it's making those decisions of can you be greedy with, okay, so I drew engage, I engage for Ray, I grab Ray, can I Kagari back, engage, Shizuku search the second one for a massive follow-up, or do I have to use the engage now to grab an interruption? And what interruption do I grab? You know, so it's a very skill-intensive deck. It's also, do you know that Shark Cannon, when they discard, you know, Ben 10 for cost? Called by the Grave on Ben 10, you know? There's a lot of decision-makings of what you actually use your interruptions on, when you use them, how you use them. Kaiser Coliseum and TC Boo make this a lot easier of a process, but you are still going to have to process, how do I actually win the game from here? There's also a debate on what do I Kagari back? When do I use my Kagari? With one Kagari, there have been times where I've waited until my third turn to actually go into my Kagari plays. It's all about just waiting it out, just seeing what your opponent has, and you know, it's all about the decision making, and you're going to get at least for me, what I found it's the best way to do it is play games and go and like look for plays that could have made your play better, and seeing if it was playing around like a one-of. Like if they have Imperial Order, sometimes you have to know that there are accepted game losses. There are just times where your opponent is going to have the Imperial Order and you just lose. You know, there's nothing you could have done about that. Oh, you didn't draw Ray and like your top 6 cards, unlucky, you know. You just lose those games sometimes. And there's not really much you could have done about that. Didn't see a consistency card, didn't see anything, that's fine. Sometimes your opponent draws, you know, multiple hand traps and you actually can't break a board through that. You know, that's fine. It's all about optimizing the games that you would have won if you had actually played the correct cards. Which the deck list does for you, and then it's you figuring out Sky Striker from there. So it's a lot of rulings knowledge. So to be completely honest, the best way that you could learn how to do rulings is go card by card through the deck you're playing and look up rulings. Like there's a rulings... You can go look up, like, they're unofficial, but they're decent most of the time for just understanding how a situation would interact. Like, just ask a question. Okay, like, for example, what happens when I Zeke my opponent's monster? They summon something else under Kaiser Coliseum. What happens to that monster? You go look it up. I actually don't know that one. 1 second, we'll go look that one. Alrighty, we looked it up. It sends it from Banish to Graveyard. That was not actually on any of the forums, though. We got it from word of mouth through Master Duel. That's why Master Duel is great. It's an official simulator. Anything that happens here is official, except bugs, which there's a lot of in this game. Cards that I thought about that I should talk about that aren't in any of my lists are Ego Booster specifically, why I'm not playing it. The card is kind of trash. It's better with 2 engage and not 1 engage, but it's just not... very necessary or good. There are just better flex spots and one that you could play one ofs that aren't ego booster that will win you the game more often. It has to do with the mentality of turn 1 and turn 2 are generally all about 1-for-1s, which is why you see us on the Ashes, the Veilers, the Imperms. The main strength of this deck is its ability to, like, essentially 2-for-1 your opponent every single time. Every single time you're either, like, going plus, it's a card advantage deck. So it's very important to, 1-for-1 your way to a point where a 2-for-1 will win you the game. Like, there's a reason, like, Called by the Grave. That hits. It's a really good card because not only can you, like, Called by the Grave bend 10, but you can also negate its effects for the entire turn. Whereas just Emperor Mood, like, it's a very good card. You want to, like, make sure that you want to grind them down to just a few cards at hand to where the point, like, where Widowmaker is just the end of the game. The deck has actually a really decent time. It has a pretty easy time finding lethal after, like, a few turns. It just grinds you down. It's literally outgrinds every single relevant deck. There's a reason why I think this deck is very playable this meta. And it's mainly because it literally auto-wins going first versus Drytron. They literally cannot beat Shark Cannon. There are just so many good targets for it, and it just gets rid of their grind game. Alrighty, so now we're going to talk about why you go first over going second. So it's mainly a fundamental thing of why you would want to go first over going second. It's just simply your opponent doesn't get a setup turn. Blinding second is essentially just saying that I will draw the droplets every single time. I'm not on droplets even though it's a pretty good card. I just think it's a little bit too awkward to use in a lot of situations, though it is one of the cards that I would consider playing in the deck, even in, like, the most optimal decks. It's just essentially draw droplets. Dark Ruler No More doesn't really work in the deck because it turns off all your Widow Anchors. You only want to play one Afterburners. Afterburners is really the only blind second card in this deck, and, like, it's a utility one of that most of the time gets sided out. It's not really worth it. Every single other card in your deck wants to go first. Even Afterburners likes a turn of setup. Did you know popping 2 cards is better than popping 1 card? I know, it's a crazy thing to understand. A lot of the other argument that blind second enthusiasts should bring up is that all blind second is shiz passing. Oh yeah, I'm just shiz passing with TC Boo, different dimension ground set. True, that is a shiz pass. Did you know Engage is a better card than anything that they could top deck? Because it's just I get to search my Engages for free, essentially. And, like, even if they ash you on that, you still have, like, you just set up your engine that, like, floats into, like, a bunch of stuff. So it's just really important that your opponent doesn't get the setup turn that a lot of decks will just kill you with. It's like, oh yeah, why, it's really cool, like, blinding second, but you play around the same amount of hand traps. It's literally just, do I play 3 TC Boo or do I play 3 Board Breaker? Even in, like, the TCG, like, it's literally a difference between 1 droplets or 3 droplets and 2 droplets, and 2 droplets just feels better anyways. Because it's a really awkward card. So, like, no matter where you go, it's still correct to blind first in Sky Striker pretty much every single time. Because the deck isn't just shiz passing, and even if it was, shiz pass is literally an FTK versus Drytron with 3 spells in the grave. They literally can't do shit. Or, well, I mean, they can, but they actually have to be good at comboing, and, like, 90% of the people on ladder aren't good at that. So, we chillin'. I really think that Plat is actually free. Even Plat, like, 1, it's actually free. I don't actually think that me hitting top rank in a few days, like, is actually an impressive feat because of how easy it was. Maybe that one's just me. Maybe it's actually just a skill difference. But essentially, just go first. You will win more games going first than you will going second. It's draw the out, and then sometimes the out doesn't matter. And it's like, yeah, you play fine going, and the reason why you play Sky Striker over other decks that can go first is your deck doesn't auto lose going second. Don't get me wrong, we have some very, very powerful going second tools. But that doesn't mean you have to go and, like, blind second like an ape. Listen here, blinding second is cool if you have literally 0 plays to do. But when you have a singular play to do, it's better to go first and, like, get your setup. Your resource management deck, you don't want to sit there and watch your opponent go plus 12 on a combo. You just don't really want that to happen because they now have more resources to work with to bounce back. Setting your Widow Anchors rather than trying to break a board with them, it makes a huge difference. Every single interruption matters in this deck, and going first just maximizes that opportunity to draw interruptions. It doesn't did your Widow Anchors, it doesn't did your Shark Cannons, which are generally only, like, Shark Cannons, they're awful going second. If you're not link climbing with them, they're just awful. Or, like, banishing Golden Lord. Like, there's just a lot of nuances with, you know, why you'd want to go first. Like, most of these cards want to go first. Exactly Afterburners is the only blind second card, and maybe I guess Twin Twisters, but I'm not even on that in, like, the optimal list. So, like, you know, you want to be going first in every single game because it means your opponent is not going first, so you can get your setup turns. A lot of players are going to tell you that blind second is better because Hayate. It's not true, but let's go over why it's not true. So you link off into Hayate, battle phase, you dump engage, and then you Kagari it back. In the TCG, it's completely okay to do this. It's not really, but we'll get into why it's not okay, because it just plays into more hand traps. And then you go into Shizuku. With one Kagari, this is super sus. You pretty much never actually want to Kagari turn 1 unless you're going for a greedy play where you hard drew engage, you activate engage, Ray effect, grab Ray, you link into Kagari, you grab back engage, and then you, like, Shizuku for engage for a really insane turn 2. Like, for an insane turn 2. It works, but, like, you know, it can be a bit crusty at times. But the reason why you don't actually want to Hayate Kagari for engage specifically is you want to Hayate Kagari for what you would engage search. You have to think one step ahead. What do I actually need? Do I need the Widow Anchor for interruption? If so, you dump the Widow Anchor. If you need burners to clear a board, you dump the burners. Because these are a lot less committal to... Because it's not dumping exactly engaged to the graveyard. Meaning you can still Shizuku search it. That's the main reason, is Shizuku search now is a must respond to, or else they just lose the game in the next turn. You want to Hayate Kagari for what you would have searched off engage if you don't have 3 in graveyard. Mostly, and this is TCG, oh boy. This is TCG logic, but it kind of carries over here. You want a Kagari for engage if you already have engage in the graveyard. But you don't want to Hayate for engage because you actually generally lose engage activations. So if you already have engage into rotation, it is correct to Kagari for engage. But if you don't have engage into rotation, it is correct to Kagari for the card you would have searched off of engage. Because it plays around specifically Ash Blossom on the engage. And, like, if you already have multi-roll-up, it's not that big of a deal, but, like, it's still a bit rough. You just generally want to essentially play around every single card your opponent could have in this instance, and, yeah, it's a lot better to, you know, Hayate dump what you would search. A lot of the times I found myself just dumping area zeros to the graveyard because I just need more spells in the graveyard, and area zero is literally filler. So, a lot of the time Hayate isn't even that big of a plus. The other big dump I'm actually dumping is Skystriker Ace Ray. You can dump that to the graveyard with Hayate. So you should be doing that if you do not have Ray in the graveyard and you don't specifically need a spell card at that immediate moment. You can like Shizuku for Hercules base to like get your Kagaris back online. It's not exactly the most optimal plays, but it's very important to understand, you know, plays that, like, you know, over in the at least in the TCG that are optimal. These are generally going to be better than a lot of the plays that the other people are going to be telling you. It's actually optimal to save your Kagaris for as long as possible because it's at 1. Generally, you only need the 1 Kagari. Like, I've noticed a lot of the times, what 1 Kagari, like, puts you at is it forces you to, like, it forces you to, like, play a lot slower of a game with your, like, actual resources. It becomes a lot more resource intensive because Kagari solves literally every single issue. Like, multiple Kagari solves your entire grind game, pretty much. Though you do have multiple multi-rolls, so it still outgrinds everything in the format. It's just a lot more intensive. So now, because Sky Striker is essentially the deck where you need to know everything about your opponent's deck, let's go talk about some choke points. A lot of the times versus Eldritch, what you want to Ash is very specifically Scarlet Sanguine. It just stops the Lord from getting on the field. They can't just activate another one, and they need to, like, strike it or something. And even then, you're still going 1-for-1 with a Solemn Strike and an Ash. And, like, if they're not Solemn Striking your Link monsters, you're happy. Another big one is what do I Ash versus Virtual World. Generally, you want to Ash Lulu, though sometimes if you read their hand is super bad, you can Ash, like, Lili or Lao Lao, and it still does the job okay. If it's like their only name, though it's a really high roll. A lot of the times what you want to be ashing is the Lulu effect. That's just it's the best ash target. Most other decks you will have the interruption for, but like some things versus Unchained where it's like you don't actually want to, like, grab Afterburners versus Unchained. You want to Widow Anchor steal their stuff. And because they don't link for cost or anything, you can, like, you just hold your anchors in hand and just wait for them to, like, do a play with their link too. And then you chain Widow Anchor, you take, and you go for game. So it has some stuff like that, where it's... you have to, like, intuitively, like, understand, like, how each matchup works. Ash on Drytron, it's very, very subjective, and a lot of the times Ash isn't doing anything. You obviously Veiler Diviner or you Veiler the Fafnir, but, like, what do you Ash? Generally, I try to stop them off of Ritual Spell if I can. Though ashing Ben 10 is also an option. Though that's generally what I like to DD Crow out of Grave. But, like, going second versus Drytron is pretty much the reason why going second is awful, because its draw droplets are literally lose the game. Dark Ruler No More, like I said, doesn't really work with this deck because Afterburners is the only card that actually synergizes with it. And a 1-of, you shouldn't really be playing a 3-of for a 1-of. It's just, it doesn't really make sense. To get more information on the deck, I suggest going and watching other people play the deck. Even if you are not, like, good at the deck, there are a lot of people who are good at the deck. The Striker is luckily popular enough that, like, channels like the DB Grinder and stuff will have replays of it, even if they aren't the most optimal Striker lists ever, and they might not have the most optimal play. You can literally go and look at why they failed. or why they had success, and like analyze what card choices work, what card choices don't work. It's also important to know that generally, just because a list topped doesn't make it good. Just because I got plat 1 and like a 12-game win streak with this list, or 11, I think it was actually 11. I lost my win streak. Oh no, that's the wrong list. I lost my win streak to an absolute like brutal brick that I could not play through. No consistency, no nothing. It can happen. And if you don't draw Ray, you do lose the game. So you just have to get skilled and draw Ray. But anyways, it's very important to know that, like, just because this list got plat 1, 11-game win streak, no max C, you don't need that crap. This list is still better, even though it has, like, I think literally 0 games. We haven't actually tested it. It's just better conceptually speaking. Mainly because nobody can craft it, because nobody has the UR points. But, this list is considered better than the one that I topped with because of the conceptual points around it. Which leads me into another point of just, you can join the Striker Discords if you want. If you get a bunch of mouth breathers who think that, Striker going second is better because Pack topped with it, they're incorrect, and it's anecdotal evidence. You can just choose not to listen to them on, their deck lists. But you can still take the, deck knowledge away of, what choices do they go for? Except Hayate for Engage. That is troll. On so many levels. I've done it before, but it was because, my opponent was actually on 0 cards, and it was just better for me to +1 over, Kagari back, Widow Anchor. It was just better for me to engage search it because I knew they didn't have Ash. Because they would have ashed other effects. So, there's some times where it is better to, dump engage and, that type of stuff. But it's all, very situational of what choices you actually do. And I can only give you general tips, which is the really unfortunate part. Once you start playing the deck, you'll start seeing it more, and you'll start actually being able to, form, what I need to do in very specific scenarios to actually be able to come ahead of your opponent. It all comes down... There is no set rule of... The only real thing that you're doing is normal summon Ray, link off into Shizuku, grab engage, and activate / set any of your back row. Activate your Kaiser Coliseum. Congratulations, you've just FTK'd every single Drytron opponent that did not draw exactly Harpy's Feather Duster, Storm, Twin Twisters, or Cosmic. And only a few of those cards are actually seeing play in Drytron lists, so we're actually pretty good. Hopefully this cleared some stuff up about Sky Striker, and if you have any more questions, please leave them down below. I'm probably better at typing out the answers to the specific questions that people who are trying to get into Striker will have, rather than, just making, a 40-minute video and trying to remember every little detail about Sky Striker that I know. Please do not ask me how do you play this deck, because how I play the deck has come to me through, essentially just playtesting. It's really hard to describe what the correct Striker play is, because it's generally always essentially how do you play it. It comes down to game knowledge, reviewing your games. It's not going to come, immediately to you, but you will get it. Once you get Striker, you will pretty much get every single control deck in existence. I should also cover a few cards before I go why they aren't good in Sky Striker. Conceptually speaking, Droll and Lockbird is not very good in Sky Striker. You need a very specific reason to play Droll in, FTK format. That's about the only time that you actually want to play Droll and Lockbird, because it's inherently a -1, and it sometimes doesn't even stop the full combo. It's really crazy, but Droll and Lock, it's just not exactly a very good card. it's really weird where you just don't really want to be like it's like good enough for a turn pass, and like different dimension grounds is an amazing turn pass because you went first, you got the advantage for the -1 back with engage, so you can start playing the game again, right? And if they harpies feather dustered you, you essentially 1-for-1 traded with them, so it's completely fine, like, you know, for that. But like, why is Droll and Lockboard worse? It's a hand trap is essentially why. Even Max C and them just passing, it feels a lot better because if they tried to, like, generally actually what you want to be doing is chaining Max C to a special summon, or like, you know, normal summon Black Metal Dragon, activate Max C. What are they actually going to do? They could take the Max C challenge, but obviously you don't want to wait for like normal summon Ray. Generally, what you want to hopefully try to do is like bait the tag out, and then Max C. The actual correct play normally is waiting for your turn to come up. Activate Afterburners, or like activate your like destruction effects, right? Pop the Shizuku, activate Ray Effective Flow, chain Max C. You generally at least get a draw 1. Sometimes you get a draw 2 if they try to tag out. It is a really, really good way to, like, that's how you use Max C versus Sky Striker per se. It's generally not correct to hold it for your turn, but like, let's just say Max C Altergeist. You actually want to wait for the Faker effect. That's when you want to Max C. Sometimes that's turn 1 when they Imperm Faker you, you know, not really gonna happen with Faker at 1. But, you know, you save Max C for the Faker, specifically. That sort of thing. It's, you don't, like, Max C does it. And then if you draw Max C versus Draco, honestly, just unlucky, go next game. Yeah, no, honestly, I can't really say much about that one. That one's just unlucky, you know? It's not even that bad of a matchup because, like, Afterburner is just absolutely, like, you actually eat their control game alive. So it comes down to who can, like, actually just... It essentially comes down to, can you out the amount of skill drain that they put up? And if the answer is yes, you win the game. And if the answer is no, you probably lose it. Though, like, you can still, like, no, like, for Ray rulings, like, you can still, like, tag out under skill drain. It's really the only reason why I even considered Ego Booster. I just don't actually respect Draco that much, and people who say Draco is good, I've played it. It really isn't. Draco's kind of, cheeks. So, like, you know, it's all about knowing your matchups. It's like, you know, like I said, Imperm on Doodle Doe. That's, like, that's just the big Imperm target, or Veiler target. You know, Ash the first prank kids, only for them to rip. Oh, crap, what's the words? Rip Monster Reborn, there you go. You know, there's just sometimes where your opponent draws better than you do. You're essentially a very fair deck, and you outgrind the entire meta. Selene access code Halka-Fibrax are the best link climbing tools. You essentially have 2 free slots in your extra deck because literally Phoenix and Hita, like, never come up ever. So, like, that's just essentially what I'd replace the 3rd Kagari. Like, with 3 Kagari if you wanted to go TCG. Though this is not an optimal TCG extra deck because there's Dragon Phoenix Enforcer. Or no, it's Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. I got it. I remembered it. Holy crap. It's Destroyer Phoenix. Bro, I look like the biggest idiot, don't I? I don't know what DPE stands for. I just know the acronym. Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer is in that one, so, you know. So I hope you liked this analysis of both TCG and Master Duel. So essentially just OCG. I mean, we have 3 Maxi. It's practically just OCG, Sky Strikers, and the mix. And, like, hopefully you understood something. If you need any clarifications, please put it in the comment section. I would be happy to respond.